Hogstye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hogsty. It is owners meeting week. I'm gonna start making up stupid names for weeks like this when the dead time between, post free agency and the draft. So this is owners meeting week because this is when
Well,
all the rich guys get together at a very, very fancy hotel and they have an orgy. We don't talk about the orgy, but they have an orgy.
I would. My recommendation was let's just make up a name that has absolutely nothing to do with football. If you're gonna make
Okay,
names up,
okay. What do you want this one to be?
I'm terrible with names. I can't name stuff. I'm
Well,
horrible.
okay,
Creating
so
my
in DC it was the Cherry Blossom Festival. We could go with
That's
that.
boring. No,
Yeah.
no, that
I
cherry
made the
blossom
mistake of
festival.
going down to that, by the way. I can talk about that if we need topics. It was
Why
hell.
would you go to the cherry blossom festival?
Friends wanted to go. All right, so there's the kite flying part of it where like thousands of people fly kites on the National Mall all at once. Steve, you hit mute on yourself.
Oh, sorry. I said I vaguely, sort of, kind of remember that in
Right.
in
So
some, like, I don't ever want to remember it again kind of way.
yeah, yeah. Friends wanted to go to that, and it was interesting to see all those kites. But good God, we brought 4 kites. Only mine survived. Everyone else has got eaten by a tree.
You own a kite?
Who doesn't own a kite
I don't
somewhere?
own a kite.
You had kids, man. You
We
don't think
know
in
we
your
never
base.
owned a
Oh well,
kite.
you
I
don't have a
don't.
basement.
It's been a long time since I had a kite. Wow.
It's like deep within storage. I dug out a kite.
I can honestly say never once did we ever fly a kite. Either one of the boys and I never flew a kite.
Really? Like when they're little kids? Come on, it's a fun time. Go to the beach,
No,
fly a
we
kite.
never did. Never flew a kite.
Huh?
I had a
That's
boomerang. We used to throw the boomerang around.
so the DC Boomerang Festival would be an interesting, horrifying situation.
That would be the DC government getting sued for creating a personal injury by sanctioning a boomerang
Oh,
event.
it's a double entendre festival then.
Maybe a little bit, yeah. See, that's what we need to do. We need to have some, names of these weeks that have double entendre meanings to it, and see if anybody
Right.
picks up on them.
It's really tough to do that off the spot, though. I'd have to
It
sit
really
down and
is.
think of, yeah. A good double entendre takes some time.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes you can just spit out that double entendre. Now,
Oh
can't
yeah,
you?
oh yeah. Sometimes you can, sure.
You didn't
But
even. It just that one went right by you. Okay.
no, I picked up on it. Well, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope all of our listeners are doing well. I'm in week 2 of my new job, which has been going great.
Have you received your termination notice yet?
I have not been fired yet. I've
Oh,
had
he
to do
still has up
local.
to 60 days anyway. He's got time.
Yeah. I got to do the review period anyway.
Now, is the new gig less complex than your old gig?
I mean, it's it's the same kind of stuff that I always do, so it's not any more or less complex.
It's about the same.
Yeah, about the same. I was telling Dave before, it's not so much tech because I know tech. You know me, I'm a tech nerd. Like I can do tech blindfolded. It's getting used to new personalities. That's always the tricky thing in any new position. I feel like
Now you have to deal with lawyers, and that's always never fun.
lawyers are nothing compared to bureaucrats. They're a cakewalk.
What about bureaucrat lawyers? That's what I have to deal with sometimes.
I had to deal with a lot of those too, remember? But mine were all old hippies who became lawyers, who became bureaucrats.
Oh, those are no good. No old hippies. I can't deal with that. No.
But I told you one was like a roadie for the Dead way back when. One of my lawyers at the old place I used to work.
The Grateful Dead is a band.
I know you hate the Dead.
I didn't hate the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
I hated what they stand for and all of that because I'm not. But they're a band that had, if you get past Touch of Grey,
Right.
I'm not sure I care very much. That one's a decent song. I don't like the whole, let's celebrate smoking dope and taking every drug in the world and, anti-war, and I'm not into all of that.
Yeah, that's not your scene. I get
But
it.
Touch of Grey was a decent song.
So music tangent. Last night, my wife and I watched on Paramount. They have Cameron Crowe re-released his documentary about Tom Petty from the 80s with some updated footage. I know you're a big Tom Petty guy.
I
I
am.
love Tom Petty.
I've never
Uh,
seen this documentary you're talking about.
Okay, it's called Heartbreakers Beach Party. I think he made it like when I was 3 or something. It's an old documentary, but they've re-released it with like an extra hour of new footage that he just never put out. So like it's the original, and then he's like, all right, now you see me as an old man, Cameron Crowe, and then here's the other stuff that I never put out there. So, but you're a Tom Petty guy. If you get Paramount, go look at it.
I will do that because I love Tom Petty.
Yes,
Rest in peace, Tom.
yes, and this is all old school, like damn the torpedoes era Tom Petty. So
He's snorting coke in the sky.
he might have been snorting some coke in the documentary.
I think he was a pretty big drug abuser in his day.
Oh yes. I have a story somebody told me. I don't want to repeat it because of libel.
You've told me this story.
I've told you that story.
Yeah.
Off air, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, off air. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, my recommendation to you is let's not tempt the defamation
gods.
laws. Yeah,
The gods of lawsuits.
right.
All right. Well, there is some stuff that happened with the NFL this week that we should talk about. Because it's the owners' meetings, like I said, the owners are having their orgy down in the Florida Keys or wherever they're doing it. It might be outside of Miami, I think, actually.
Do you have evidence that there's an actual orgy?
I have hearsay and conjecture. Those are kinds of evidence.
Well, I mean,
That's
when
not really evidence.
when they're bringing in truckloads of tissues and lotions and other stuff down there, I mean, that's a pretty good indication.
It's a
Well,
fancy
going on.
hotel.
I mean, maybe they got P. Diddy's supplier involved.
They just bought P. Diddy's lotion collection at surplus, and
There's no need for it now. P. Diddy's locked up forever. He's not getting out.
well, he needs it now more than ever, Steve.
He might need it for himself now. Yeah, actually. he's gonna be the chew toy for some fine young man in prison.
Hey, you never know. He might be comfortable dry too. You never know.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
I don't know if the people who are bossing around in prison are going to care if he's comfortable or
No,
not.
they don't care.
No, they
No.
won't. No, they will
They
not.
do not. Well, we're also assuming he is in a bad prison, not a white collar prison.
I
He
mean,
is
he's
still
not in a
somebody.
federal prison. He is in a California state prison, I believe. Isn't it California he got charged in?
I think it is California.
It's not federal court, so he's in
Yeah.
some California state prison.
Oh, that's true. It's a state level, so that's more
State
unpredictable.
prisons are always worse than federal prisons are typically a little bit.
Club Fed.
calmer.
That's the
Yeah.
nickname.
Well, I mean, because they're not trying every garden variety aggravated assault,
Right.
charge in federal court usually. So
Right. All right. So, some stuff that came out of the owners' meetings. First of all, they've announced some of the rule changes that they will be implementing. The tush push, I'm going to get that one out of the way first. The vote on that was delayed for later this year. I think they're trying to figure that out. It's interesting how obviously the coaches are the ones who make these decisions, right? Like they're the ones who vote. The competition committee is made up of respected head
I
coaches.
mean, ultimately, the owners have the final say in all this stuff. Ultimately,
True, but the
Yeah.
coaches have a big influence on a lot of this stuff. So the tush push is getting delayed. It doesn't look like the thing I wanted, the automatic first down being gotten rid of. That's
Well,
not
can we
happening.
stop on the tush push? I mean,
Sure.
I don't have a huge problem with the play, to be honest. I mean, I don't. I guess I don't. The big deal, the reason why, especially why Washington fans hate it, is that the Eagles are really good at it. That's why
Sure.
Washington fans hate it. But I mean, I don't have a huge problem with a guy behind the quarterback leaning into him. Basically, I don't know why that's such a problem.
Well, I think maybe one of the reasons why they're putting off the delay because they used to have a rule about pushing guys from behind the line of scrimmage into the end zone, which they haven't enforced in forever because they pretty much done away with it. I'm curious if they're going to just kind of just bring an adaptation of that rule back, so we can't get like four people behind Hurts or any other quarterback and just pushing them all in. Something like that or whatever. But
I mean, I guess my point is like if Washington was good at the tush push,
We'd all be in favor of keeping it. Yes.
all the fans would. Yeah.
Yeah. So and look, I do think there is a safety factor to it. Like obviously, anytime you're just doing a mass scrum, there is some safety element to this. But Because it's run so rarely, I don't think there's enough data
But
to
you're
say
adding
anything.
like
Yeah.
another 700 pounds to the thrust, basically.
Right, exactly. The other thing, and this is what I think they do need to start enforcing, the frequency at which if you watch the tush push, and there's clearly guys on the offensive line lining up off the or over the line of scrimmage, like they're well into the neutral zone a lot.
That's another issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another, but it doesn't get well enforced because the refs are so busy looking at everything else. I think that,
They're too busy examining Jalen Hurts' tush.
right, right, making
Yeah.
sure making sure he's not doing obscene hand gestures or that his socks are the right height
Or
because
that his tush is making obscene gestures.
right, you don't want that either.
No, we don't.
No,
So in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, if these linemen are lined up in the neutral zone, that needs to be called.
right,
And that's
because we
that's
saw that in the championship or NFC championship at one point,
I
Right.
think you're right.
Yeah.
and they didn't call it. So now does anyone know anything else about the tush push, or can we move on?
No, we can move on. I just wanted to make
Okay.
the point about it. That was it.
Yeah,
I
okay.
know. I've never been a real big fan of it. I think it's kind of a bush league type play, but I still been a matter of, hey, if you don't like it, then stop it. If you can't stop it, don't have the league come in and force it out. I'm
That's
not
pretty
a
much what's
fan of
going
it.
on.
I'm not a fan of it, but whatever. It is what it
That's
is.
more or less what's happening is people want the
Yeah.
league. They can't stop it, so the people want the league to do it
Right.
for them.
Right.
Right.
And look, there have been, and you can go back way back in league history to see instances of people banning certain plays because they didn't think it was fair. It used to be legal for you to hide the football under your uniform to try and sneak the ball, and we had to ban that at one point. Now that goes back about 100 years, but that was a legitimate football play at one point.
It was, yeah.
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 So was eye gouging too, for that matter.
I don't know who would have a problem with eye gouging. What's the problem, Alex?
You
Right,
got
exactly.
two of them. I mean, you could sacrifice one.
Do you really care about the game, or do you not care about the game?
Right. Walter Camp once said the forward pass was going to make the football game useless. It was going to destroy the sport.
I don't believe he got that correct.
Yeah.
That correct.
He was ultimately proven right. You're right. All right. So the other rules they have made changes too. This one only I care about, but I'll mention it real quick. Touchbacks. If you get a touchback on a kickoff, it's now moving from the 30 up to the 35. This is them continuing to try and make it so teams return the ball by putting it in play. We don't have to discuss it, but I'm going to mention it. All right, the next one, overtime. I think this one we all are going to agree is a good rule. Both teams get the ball on offense no matter what. At least once. So even if the other team scores, the first team scores a touchdown, the other team at least has a chance to tie or score and get an extra point or whatever.
I mean, I think that's only fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That's been the rule for the playoffs. They're basically just taking the playoff format and extending it. I think we all agree that's fair.
Yeah, I hate the college rule, the way the college does their overtime, but
it looks so dumb to me.
It's not real football to me. But the idea of saying both teams in this NFL game, both teams are going to get the ball and get a chance, I think is the right thing to do. Right. It's just not. It seems not fair.
Remember when it used to be literally the first team to get the ball just needs a field goal and they win automatically?
Yeah, I know.
That was so weird.
Wasn't too long ago either.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I'd much rather than maybe not play a full 15-minute quarter, but maybe like a full like a 7-8 minute quarter to play the entire game, the entire quarter. So if you go down, score a touchdown, someone kicks a field goal, you still have time to go out, run it out, just go through. But
I don't know. I think network TV might have a problem with that.
Yeah, that you have a point.
Probably, but I'm not looking at that perspective though.
Yeah, it's just what you would like. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think there's anything unfair about that. I mean, the NBA basically does that, right? They do a shortened quarter for their
They do
overtime.
that. Not basically. It is. Yeah. It is exactly that.
What is theirs? 8 minutes for the first overtime or something like that?
I don't know. I wouldn't swear to the number.
But it's a shortened. It's short like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just mean, my point is like 60 minutes is already like 20 minutes late halftime. That's in that. I don't know if they want to delay it farther.
Yeah, true. All right. So the final one that they did add is they're expanding instant replay to cover more penalties that can be reviewed by the eye in the sky, basically. This includes defenseless player penalties, face mask calls, horse collar calls, tripping penalties, roughing the kicker penalties. So if the ref throws the flag on those, the league can review it before the next play and say you got it wrong.
Is there
Yeah, but-
some reason why every single thing that happens on a football field isn't subject to replay?
I think it's because then suddenly there's holding on every play.
No, I mean, the idea of replay isn't to go back and create penalties. The idea would be to challenge
Right.
existing penalties.
I
Well, see-
understand what you're saying, but
Well,
a lot of people
well,
are
see-
upset that they can't add penalties right now through replay.
Well, I'm not advocating for that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, we have all these cameras. I don't know why it'd be so difficult, and it wouldn't
Mhm.
take any more time necessarily. Wouldn't have to, because you couldn't challenge every play anyway. I'm saying keep the same number of challenges, but every single thing ought to be subject to replay review.
And
you get
using
your
the
three
eye of the
challenge-
sky in New York, yeah.
Yeah, and you get your 3 challenges and use it whenever you want.
And I'm curious why they didn't add the roughing the passer on that list too as well, because there's a lot of roughing the passer calls that should be overturned every year.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't. To be honest, on that one, I think the NFL doesn't really want people to challenge it.
that's true.
I think they want the teams to take it easy on the quarterbacks, even
Well,
though the
that's
fans
fine.
don't want it.
Well, sure, that's fine, but I mean, like when you get like, when the defensive end comes in, it looks like they hit him in the helmet, but it
Mhm.
actually hits their shoulder pads, stuff like that. You need to remove that 15-yard penalty because he came nowhere near the head.
I-
And you see dumb calls like that made time and time again.
I mean, I'm on your side about it. I just
Yeah.
think the NFL that might, if I had to speculate, I would speculate that is the reason why the NFL wouldn't
Sure.
include it. That's all. But I
Yeah.
agree with you. I think they ought to.
Well, I think we're all in agreement. It should obviously be reviewed. I was at the United Football League game
Sorry to hear that.
over the weekend. It was a fun time. Me and
Were you
12,000
kidnapped?
people. There were 12,000 people supposedly. It
Were
looked
they
like
all
7.
kidnapped? So was it like, did they advertise like a showing of Star Wars or something?
Oh, to get people in? No. They
Was
just
it like
they just
free
want-
handkerchief day or something?
No, they're doing some weird thing where it's like, hey, if you went to Virginia Tech, we have Virginia Tech hats with the theme. I don't know. They're doing weird like college themed stuff. I don't understand because it's never my school.
The
Here.
last bastion of the desperate.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, bobbleheads. Bobbleheads are always the last bastion of the desperate.
Bobbleheads. Bobblehead night. Please come
Yeah.
watch our crappy sport.
I mean, and I'm a man who loves a good bobblehead. Don't get me wrong, but
There's some small amount of irony to that.
there is. I have I don't know, a dozen right there over there. You can't see them on camera, but they're like on a shelf that I keep. But no, there was a penalty just like that, like we're talking about, where it looked to me like the defender grabbed a quarterback by the shoulder pad to pull him down, and they called it a face mask.
Right.
And even in there, they couldn't review it because they have their rules too. It is very annoying when you see it. It just is. I saw it plain as day from where I was. The ref was, and I love this when the ref is clearly standing and he can't see the face mask at all, yet he throws the flag. Like, the
Well, he's kind
quarterback.
of making an assumption of where he thinks
Yeah,
the
he's making a
hand would
judgment
be.
call.
Right. That's where I get the most peeved about this is when the refs, you can tell they can't see the actual penalty, but they're interpreting what they're seeing as a penalty.
That's why there ought to be replay.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to actually tell the story, was to say they need to figure that part out.
That's not why you tell the story. We all know why you told the story. It's just to brag that we went to a
To brag about going to minor league football. Yes, that's what I do.
again.
Yes.
Yes, it's a flex. It's Alex's nerdy flex.
It's the world's saddest flex.
It really is.
We won though. We won. DC won a football game over the weekend. So yay.
Who did they play?
They played the last year's champion Birmingham Stallions in the opener.
And what is this team called? The U.S. What is it?
The DC
what?
Defenders.
Is that the team we were credentialed
No,
for?
different team, different league.
Oh, it was?
Different
Okay.
league.
Outdoor football, not indoor football.
Oh, okay.
Yes, real football, not fake football. Which I
But
also
thank you for
love.
credentialing us anyway, former team.
That league's been extinct for 8 years now.
Hadn't been quite that long, hopefully, but
2019 they won. So what is that?
oh, it has
6
been
years.
a long time.
Yeah. All right, so those were the rule changes. I'm in favor of all of them. I think the more you get right with instant replay, the better. Even if it's not perfect still. I think we all agree there, right? Get as much
Speaking
right
as
as
an
you can.
attorney, I wholeheartedly hope that they spend hours and hours and hours and days and days parsing over language.
Right. I'm sure they did. I'm sure
I
they
don't
did.
doubt it. And like I said,
Right.
they need
How much-
attorneys to do all that, so therefore I'm for it.
How much would you love to read the rule book on the nose wipe gesture that we talked about last week? That
Oh,
they had?
and billing them at $600 an hour while doing
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm much cheaper than Steve. I'm not an attorney, but I'm much cheaper than Steve by the hour.
By all means, hire me. I'll read your I'll read your rule book.
Right. And then I think we're all in
I'm your
favor of
Huckleberry.
OT too. I know you guys don't care about the touchback move, right? And,
Well,
and rest
no,
in
I
peace,
mean,
Val
No,
Kilmer. Thanks
I
for
actually
that.
like it
Nice-
because I think it gives. I think it gives more of an onus on more returns and everything. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, what they really should do is take it right out to the full 40. They keep flirting with putting it out to the 40-yard line. That's where they should just put it. That would definitely keep that ball out of the end zone and forcing teams to run, because you're not going to give that ball to the opponent at the 40-yard line every time you score. That'd just be insane.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's worth a discussion. And yes, it was a subtle Val Kilmer reference. Rest in
Right.
peace to
Yeah,
Iceman.
may he rest in peace. Great movie run, especially in the early 80s and 90s through the 90s.
Well, I mean, if everybody remembers, 2 years ago, he had a small role in the Top Gun sequel.
That was well done too.
It was,
like they
yeah.
worked
It
his
was.
illness into it nicely.
Mainly because they had no choice.
Well, I know. Well, no, they had the choice of just not including him. And
Yeah,
Well,
no, that's
but
good.
they did it the right way.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Well, I mean, it was Tom Cruise that pushed for all that anyway. He said he has to be in the movie regardless. Work that into there, and he convinced Val Kilmer to do it.
I would
So
like to
it's-
point something out real quick, and this is nothing with football, and I promise it'll only take a few seconds. Somebody
We're
start
talking
the
about
clock.
Val Kilmer. It's fine.
15 seconds or less. I'd like to point out that not one of you out there knows what Tom Cruise's politics are. Unless you know Tom Cruise personally, which maybe somebody does, I have absolutely no idea whether Tom Cruise is a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or a communist.
And that's the way it should be.
Absolutely, because Tom Cruise is smart enough to know, one, he's going to irritate half the country, and two, he's probably too dumb to know what to talk about if he was going to spout off, because he's an actor. He's not somebody who's an academic that's going to study that. So everybody take a lesson. You Hollywood people take a lesson from Tom Cruise, which
Except
is I can't
for
believe I'm
his
saying.
crazy, weird religious beliefs. We do know.
But
those.
forget that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can't believe I'm
Scientology.
saying this.
Yeah, like in deep into it to the point where he
Yes.
may have.
Right, yeah, it's a little bit odd. So I mean, that's why I said I can't believe I'm saying this, but in
Yeah.
this respect, take a lesson from Tom Cruise. Just make movies. Just make music. That's it. So anyway, so back to the world. So yeah, I kind of agree with Dave. I mean, I think it is relevant. The farther they move it out, the more they're trying to discourage the endless stream of, touchbacks, which is what Washington did last year, by the way.
Right.
And so by moving it out, they might as well keep moving it out because that's going to discourage it farther. Simultaneously, however, they kind of want kick touchbacks because they don't like kickoffs for health reasons because they paid $1 billion in a settlement for brain damage. So there's a fine line they're trying to toe here.
It really is, and I appreciate that they've been trying and they didn't just do what Bill Belichick wanted, and that's give up on special teams altogether. Because that was his call.
Advocate for that?
Basically, yeah, he wants to get rid of the kickoff, get rid of the field goals, get rid of he's one of those anti-special teams guys.
I didn't realize that. No, that's dumb. I mean, that's We make fun of Alex for his fascination for special teams, but the truth is, it's a part of the game and it's fun to watch.
Right.
In fact, it's kind of funny because he wins 2 Super Bowls because of
Probably with it.
Vinatieri.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
he says that.
Yeah. He's one of those guys. He only said it once or twice, but I always will remember him saying he was against like keeping the kickoffs. And
Of
stuff.
course, this is a man who did a shirtless walk of shame from his 20-something-year-old girlfriend's house like 2 years ago. So I don't know how seriously I can take Bill Belichick
Steve,
anymore.
When we're in our 70s, all of us, and we have 24-year-old girlfriends, or is it really a walk of shame no matter what we're wearing?
It is a walk of shame. You're a 70-year-old man. That girl could be his granddaughter.
Oh,
First of all,
is true.
if I'm 70 years old and I'm in a situation of finding a girlfriend and she's 20-some years old, I would hope that one of my daughters would take me out in the back of the woodshed and beat some sense into me.
Absolutely. That's my point.
True.
So I don't know how seriously I can take Bill Belichick when he's doing stuff like this.
That's true.
Right.
That is true. You do have the daughters who will do that for you.
As well, somebody should do that to him.
Yes.
Right. Right. Me, I have no kids, and I also have very little.
Imagine bringing him home to meet mom and dad, and he's older than mom and dad.
Right.
Oh God.
That is so creepy.
It's very
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Very much.
Well, when I'm done with the daughter, how about?
Oh God. And now it's time to move on.
All right.
Oh man.
All right. Let's move on. All right. So a little story came out. Weird. It's probably going to be better on IJB when Steve does IJB next. But the Washington team that plays football, and we will never say their name if we can avoid it, they are awarded international rights to the United Arab Emirates. Steve, explain to us what the hell that means.
Okay, so what this is all about is that NFL teams do not hold their own marketing rights except for in their hometown, okay?
Right.
And so the NFL defines a home territory. That's why the Washington Seawards can't advertise in Baltimore. And so in this case, and the reason they do that is, the marketing efforts and the money is all distributed communist style,
Right.
amongst the team. And so the NFL has a grand master marketing plan. All these marketing agreements I worked on for an NFL team were all local agreements. Not one of them was for the NFL, because that's not the way the NFL operates. And so they have an international marketing strategy. And what they try to do is they try to get certain teams focused in certain areas. They're trying to get the NFL to pique the interest of in the NFL in certain areas around the world. And so they're going to feature certain teams. And in this case, Washington has been basically chosen to be featured in UAE in this program. There is a story here, if I can. Give me 1 second here. This was on, here it is. Okay, this is on, I'm going to say the word because this is the name of the site. Commander's Wire has this. Brian Manning,
right.
April 1st, 2025.
We will forgive the proper naming of the site, but
right, exactly.
You're on thin ice, mister.
I know. And this is the USA Today's Washington football, offshoot base. And we will talk about this on IJB. Unless Chris just doesn't want to. But anyway, so the point is the NFL has basically chosen to feature Washington in UAE. And this is not a Washington thing deciding it. This is the NFL going, we want you to do it because they've got a new young star. They just went to the NFC Championship game. This is a team that they're trying to feature now. They have solid ownership, all that stuff. So this is
for those who don't understand, also the UAE is actually a very desirable market for this kind of thing, because they have all the money.
Mm-hmm.
Think of all the money in the planet, and it's mostly there. So,
well, yeah, but also it's not a strict Muslim country.
Right, that too.
Like if you like Saudi Arabia, it's very, very strict. If anybody's ever been there, some of you military guys, maybe Dave, I don't know if you've been to Saudi.
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's very, very, very strict. UAE is not quite as strict, and so stuff like this flies more than it would in like a very traditional Muslim country like Saudi Arabia.
Now the Saudi royals, as soon as they leave there, they're going hog wild. But
I think there's always been a double standard.
Oh, of
for a
course.
lot of these Middle Eastern countries. It's very, you think, people, some of you guys out there are talking about class system and, it's oligarchy, blah, 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 in the United States. You don't know what you're talking about. Go to a
It's
Muslim
nothing compared to
country.
what they have over there. Yeah.
Yes. And they are the ultimate hypocrites. If you're in the top of the heap, they are doing everything under the sun,
Yep.
but just all of it behind closed doors.
Right.
And some of the worst things you can imagine they do
Yes.
for fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, the movie, it's not too far from the truth to talk about trafficking women into, it's
Right.
it is a little bit, but there's a grain of truth to that.
Right.
But all that to say, my point is the NFL has essentially chosen to feature Washington in the UAE in an attempt to garner support for the league in that area of the world. That's what's happening. This has nothing to do with Adam Peters deciding to have a satellite office in the UAE.
No, he just did that for fun.
It's like
You
Alex
never know.
rented an office in New York for fun a few weeks ago.
Right,
That's
because
not what this is.
Albany is the UAE of North America. We all know that.
That's what I was going to say.
This is just simply going to open the door to pave a way for a franchise to go into UAE, as they put one in London, they put one in UAE, they put one in Germany, so on and so forth.
Well, I mean, if anybody has that thought, that is well into the future. Right now, I think what it mainly is TV rights
sure.
more than anything.
It-
Is it possible they could have a game in the UAE?
Absolutely.
Sure, but
Yeah. The
I mean,
time zone thing's awful, but
it's going to be a couple years away, I would think. You got to build support for it first.
well, part of what they've been talking about, one thing that happened at the owners meeting that we didn't really discuss, but it was mentioned, is they want to go to 18 games. We know. But there's been
Right.
talk about they want to have 16 international games a year now, which to me
Man.
would have been perfect with the 17 game schedule. I've said that for years, that it should be 8 home, 8 away. Everyone has one international game, and that hits a 17 game schedule perfectly. The way that
But you have to be able to garner support for it. You can't just march straight into that many international games.
I
You
understand
got to
that,
do it
but
gradually.
that's what they want to get to with 18 games, which makes less sense to me.
And I'd like to do a public service message here for the players union, and I can't believe I'm saying this.
Right.
I'm giving the union
you're not a players union. You're a player guy, but you're not a players union guy.
I don't like unions, generally speaking. I don't think they're that useful. But the last time they just kind of let the NFL run roughshod over them on about the 17 games.
Yeah.
What they need to do is say every contract is going to be automatically increased by the value of one game check, and they didn't do that. If you're going to make me play one more game, all the contracts need to go up. So that'd be my advice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Totally agree with that. I mean, look, they're putting their health on the line. It's only
Absolutely.
fair.
It's only fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And quite frankly, they need to, with the obvious of adding another bye week for these teams, and they want to start doing this. I'm sorry, but I know they never will because of money, but they need to get rid of the Thursday night games. They have got to allow these players to have that full week of rest in between games. But
yeah, I'm with you. Thursday night is awful, but they're not going to get rid of it.
yeah,
Adding the bye week, they could do. I'm surprised they didn't do more of a roster expansion when they went to 17. I know that was talked about, but I think if they go to 18, they also have to talk about expanding the rosters by at least 4 or 5 more players, which the NFL owners will hate. But it doesn't seem like it's realistic to keep roster sizes where they are with that many more.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I mean, in terms of UAE, I think the time difference, it's one thing to have a game in London.
Sure.
It's a whole nother thing. That's going to be a 9-hour time difference.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And that's a lot. I mean, that puts the game either at an inconvenient time in UAE or on literally in the middle of the night. Here. Yeah, that's just not. I think they need to, and I think the NFL's true master plan, maybe midterm master plan, is a division in Europe.
yeah.
Oh, I think they've always. That's
Yeah, I mean, you
Roger
could get
Goodell
London,
has wanted to do
Paris,
that forever.
Berlin, Madrid or whatever, and you could maybe make that work.
Right. That's been Roger Goodell's dream forever. I think if you want to play more international games, you could, but I would focus first on maybe doing one in Japan again, maybe Australia. Like I know
Japan
the
is really
time.
hard though. That's a long flight. Look at what the NBA, Major League Baseball did.
Yeah,
They sent the Dodgers and the Cubs to Japan 2 weeks early.
right. You would
I don't
have to
even
aim.
think a bye week is long enough to do Japan.
Yeah, it would be tough. It like, but at least there you can make the time zone thing worse by playing on a Saturday, and it's basically airing here.
Yeah, but the
You know,
problem is it's like a 15-hour flight and there's a huge, time
I
difference.
know. I
I
just
just
did
don't
it.
think, yeah, I just don't think it's fair.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's the hardest part about the international. Going Southern Hemisphere is actually way easier if you think about it for that reason. You know, safety wise, it was awful going to Brazil and stuff, but at least it's the same time zones.
I
So
guess. Yeah, I
yeah,
think they need to focus on, Western Europe for the time being.
I would generally too. Western Europe, maybe a little Central Europe, like you said, Germany. I know that's Western technically, but you know,
Well,
it's
it's
more.
Western Europe, sure. It's,
Yeah, we don't really call Central Europe, right? Like it's just West
no,
versus East. Yeah.
right.
So
I
yeah,
didn't mean that in a political sense. I meant like literally like the
right,
western part of Europe, as in, not
right,
Eastern Europe.
right. All right. So the Adam Peters obviously spoke at the owners' meetings. We should cover that. Uh, Two things that he said that stood out to me. I listened to his press conference stuff on the radio and everything. First, uh, he loves himself some Javon Kinlaw, which is probably the most questionable signing this offseason. But at the same time, I'm getting a vibe that he thinks that Kinlaw is going to be like their Frankie Louvu this year. That's how I kind of heard what he said. He was
Right.
talking a lot about how this guy can play at different weights, which is interesting. It is. Not a lot of guys have like a 50, 60-pound range in their playing weight like Kinlaw does.
Right.
Uh, and it sounds like they really might try him as like a heavy end from time to time too, which they have a couple guys who I think fit that mold.
Yeah, like Wise
Um,
being one of them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Wise being I think the primary one, but I think they really want to move Kinlaw around a lot, is what they were saying. But the other thing that was mentioned, and I think this is the more important thing for fans, they're really going to start working on extending Terry McLaurin soon. Like they've already been talking about it with his, you know, uh, his team basically, and you know, look, I don't think there's any fan who wants to see Terry McLaurin gone anytime soon, right? Like but just from the leadership perspective, he's a great player. Like that's the guy, one of those guys you want here as long as he's a good player and as long as he
Yeah.
wants to be here.
You know, as to McLaurin, yes, absolutely. He's homegrown talent, all of
Hmm.
that. My question what I would start to wonder about is how long of a contract you want for the guy.
Sure,
He is 29.
right. Gonna be 30 in season.
No, no, his
No.
birthday is in April, and so actually he's going to be 29 in the middle of this month.
Oh, okay, okay. So he's
I
turning
said
29.
that, but yeah. So,
Gotcha.
but point is, once you start talking about a 32-year-old receiver, I don't know if you're gonna. It's a bit of a conundrum because he's a high-profile enough guy. He's been to 2 Pro Bowls. He's
Hmm.
going to demand a 5-year contract, and somebody's going to be willing to give it to him. All at the same time, that's going to put him at 34 years old, and you're going to see at the end of that where he may not be worth quite that
Right.
much. And so, if you could get away with it, which you probably couldn't, if it were me, I'd probably try to get him on a 3-year deal. I just don't think he's going to agree to that because too many teams would jump at the chance to grab him.
Well, you could do something like a 5-year deal with it, like the last 2 years are voidable type of years, right? But you
Well,
have the
yeah, I mean,
option of
not
converting
voidable,
that
but
money.
you wouldn't want avoidable years necessarily because that's not really a
There'd be
year he's going to play for the
outs.
team. But yeah, you would arrange it so his dead money is such that he can get gone. And sure,
Yeah.
maybe they'll do that.
That way,
Right.
if he gets to the end of his 3rd year mark and look like he's still productive, well, they can take that 4th year, make that fully guaranteed or whatever they want to do.
Well, they just
make some of it a
renegotiate, yeah.
bonus or
Right.
whatever. So
Typically, the way to do it is to you turn it into a bonus, and then the money is
Right.
spread out over the life of the rest of the contract.
right.
It is tough in a way, like with a guy like a speed guy, like when the wheels they hit their like mid 30s or early, like 33, the wheels are going to fall off and the speed guy loses all his value, right? Like bigger receivers retain value longer, generally speaking, because you don't shrink. Injuries obviously play a part in it, but like a Randy Moss could have played till 39 because of his size.
He's
He
not
would
a good
all
example either, though. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame freak of nature.
well, yes, and how many big receivers aren't? Like
I saw what bucket are
Megatron
you
would
throwing
be a better
Terry McLaurin
example.
in? That's my question.
Right. That's my thing. He's technically a speed guy, even though that's not his game.
He's not that big, though. He's 6
Right.
foot tall. He's not a overly bulky receiver, tall
That's what I'm
receiver.
saying. Like that's the thing that would worry me. He's not a big receiver. If his speed starts to go, I trust him to put in the work, but like he will hit a wall, definitely more so than some other receivers do.
Yeah,
I think
and
the
I
one
guess
silver line when it comes to him anyway is even if he loses his speed, he's an excellent route runner,
Sure.
reliable hands. I mean, at minimum, you're going to have him become a good possession receiver with some speed. But do you want to pay that kind of money for a guy who becomes just a possession type receiver with a little speed? That's what they got to navigate there. And then,
that's exactly my point.
yeah,
It's not as simple as it seems when you're talking about a guy who's 29.
right.
Yeah.
But I just think that at the end of the day, they're not going to have a choice, and they have to do a 5-year contract for him. They're just going to have to.
By the way, almost a guarantee that he's going to be the 5th leading wide receiver for Washington very quickly into next season because he's only about 100 yards away.
As measured by what? Receiving yardage?
Yeah, yardage. He's 110 yards from passing Bobby Mitchell. So, like, I'm pretty sure he'll make that.
I mean, and by the way, if people are wondering, he's got a $25 million cap hit this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to be more than that.
Oh, yeah. He if he gets re-signed, it's going to be 30 average
It's going to be gargantuan. Yeah.
That's what receivers are getting, superstars now. So yeah, by the way, so Bobby Mitchell's about 100 yards ahead, like I said. Santana Moss is number 4 with 1,500 yards roughly. If you extend him, he's probably ending up in the top 3. He's never going to beat Art Monk.
Monk is 1, but who's 2 and 3?
All right, Monk is 12,026 yards. Charlie Taylor 9,110, and then Gary Clark 8,742. And Terry McLaurin right now is at 6,379. So
he's got a long way to go. Yeah.
He'll get into the top 5, obviously. Like I said, if they extend him, he'll probably make it to number 3. I think he could get to 9,000 yards.
I don't think Art's record's in any danger though.
No. It would take a very, very special player to break that record.
Where's our friend Ricky Sanders on that list?
Ricky Sanders. Oh, Terry just passed him. Ricky Sanders had 5,854 over 9 seasons. I think it is.
I haven't heard from him in a while. We ought to get him back on the show.
Yeah, but Washington has had some great receivers. You gotta. Sometimes we forget that this team has had some good receivers over the years because we had such a drought for so long.
And left tackles.
Yeah.
And owners.
And punters. Yep. Don't forget
about the owners.
How about that? Yeah, right.
Yeah. And not so much at quarterback. They had like 3 good quarterbacks in the team's 100 years. So
I mean, let's who are the really top core? Obviously, Sammy Baugh is number 1. No matter what anybody thinks, Sammy Baugh is number 1.
Yeah.
Jurgensen,
Theismann. You want to throw Rippon in there for his 1 year?
See that, and that's the problem. Like I love Mark Rippon. That's
He
my
won a
childhood
Super
quarterback.
Bowl,
But
but it's
Right.
you gotta. He was not a long-term answer.
right,
The
No.
he was
long-term
good for about
answers
3 seasons.
at most,
Yeah,
Sonny, Sammy, Sonny, Joe.
Joe.
Beyond that,
Yeah,
I don't really think
nothing.
there's anybody.
Beyond
Yeah.
that, nothing. It's maybe 35 years of the team's 100-year history that they've had great quarterbacks.
In
Oh,
the in the meantime, the Packers have had
Yeah,
40 years
infinite.
of
Yeah. I mean, we also can't leave out Heath Schuler. I mean, he's got some.
Sure, that's true. That's true.
I
Heath
think
Schuler.
we could leave him out of at least some discussions. Yes.
Yeah, maybe a little.
Tony
What a
Banks.
disappointing
That's the
pick
one
that
that
was.
everyone sleeps on. Tony Banks was.
I met Heath Schuler
Yeah.
at a
Did he
signing. Yeah.
headbutt you?
He did not. No.
Oh,
Oh, that was Gus Farrat.
oh,
who did
right.
the
That was
headbutting.
Gus Farrat,
I met Gus Farrat too. Actually,
and he did headbutt you.
he did
Yeah.
headbutt me. Yeah.
That's how he greets everybody. That's the problem.
I'll tell you a story off air. I don't want to tell it on the air. My Gus Farrat story. Remind me.
Oh, I didn't. Steve actually has a new story to tell us.
I have a Gus Farrat story.
We've never
No,
heard the Gus
tell you
Farrat.
what. Tell you what. I'll tell it here. I'll just leave names out.
All right.
My
Mus
boss.
Farrat.
Well, the last time when I lived in DC in the 90s, my
Right.
boss was a massive, huge Dallas Cowboys fan.
Okay.
And so me and another person who worked directly for him, we saw Gus Farrat was at a signing somewhere, and that's the part I want to leave out where it was.
Okay.
But we went. I went up to Farrat and said, "Hey, you know, the boss is a huge fan of Washington, and he loves you. And could you sign this hat for us?" And so
Right.
we got this hat, and knowing this boss was about to leave, and he
Right.
left like a month after that, and so that was our going away present to him, was the Gus Farrat signed Washington Redskins hat.
That's pretty good.
He was not amused.
You
That's
you
great.
were at the Haberdashers. You didn't want to say where it was, but it was obviously a Haberdashers because you had a hat.
But you got me. Yeah,
though.
that was it.
The 90s was a weird time. A lot of signings at Haberdashers.
How did you know, Alex?
It was a top hat too. It wasn't just a normal hat, wasn't
Oh,
it?
it wasn't a baseball hat. It was a top hat. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was like we gave him the hat like Slash would wear.
Nice.
Nice. That we made your story better.
The lies made it better. The lies improved things.
That isn't that always the truth?
It is.
All right, let's get back on track. It's been a silly show.
Yeah.
All right, we do have to talk about the corners because it's that's the draft thing. That was done by our buddy Nolan from Tampa. If you want to go read it, it's on our website now. You posted it on April Fool's Day. It's not a joke. That is really his column, folks. I'll go through the names real quick, and then we can just talk corners just in general. So Travis Hunter, obviously going to be the top name. Ironically, also going to be the top name in my wide receivers draft breakdown because no one knows what he's going to do yet.
Yeah, right.
But he's one of those guys who could go 1-1 if a quarterback doesn't, right? Like he's an elite player. So then you got Will Johnson, Siobhan Ravel Jr., Benjamin Morrison, Jade Barton, Maxwell Harrison, Trey Amos, Azir Thomas. Am I getting that one even close?
No, but go
Osray.
ahead.
Yeah,
That's
Osray
the
Thomas.
Florida State guy.
Yeah, the Florida State guy. Darren Portner, Dazelle Burke, Quincy Riley, Dorian Strong, Tommy Hill, Kobe Bryant, BJ Adams, Jalen Smith, Noel Williams. All right, so he's got highlight clips of all of them in this column. So if you want to go just watch a whole bunch of NFL draft clips of all these guys, you definitely can. Look, corner is still a need for this team.
It is,
So.
but I don't know if they're going to draft a corner in round one necessarily,
don't
which
think
is why
so.
we're kind of not skipping over it, but it's kind of why we're skimming over this.
Yeah. We're breezing through it just because. Look, we're not watching 7th round corners. We all have jobs.
And I think it's safe to say, if you just want the overview here, Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, those are your
Right.
top two by far,
Right.
and
They're definitely
then
first rounders.
yeah, and then Ravel and Morrison are kind of behind him. Those are the four that are the top. If Washington did want to make some sort of big corner move in the draft,
Mhm.
you got to think not Travis Hunter's just not going to be available
No.
in the
No.
story. Ravel or
He will be
Morrison,
gone by the 4th pick
yeah.
at the latest.
So Ravel or Morrison would probably be more along the line. If they wanted to do it, that's probably who they'd have to aim for. So there you go.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I would say if you're, and I want to actually kind of get your guys' opinion. At 29, would you be mad at a cornerback? I wouldn't. You know, they could use another corner. It's not like they're stacked.
You're right. I agree with that 100% what you just said. But I think what they have in need for running back, edge, myself
Sure.
personally, a true linebacker that they can either groom
Mm-hmm.
that's going to take over Wagner's spot or whatever. Those would be my top three positions, and then offensive line maybe my fourth one on there, and then corner would be my fifth on that one. To be honest with you,
What were your top
Wow.
three? You can say it again, Dave, real fast.
my top three was running back, edge, and linebacker.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'd sign up for that exactly.
Yeah.
I would agree. Those are I think, more pressing needs. But if no one's there that you love and there's a good corner still, I'm not going to be terribly mad about that. I think if they
wouldn't be
drafted
mad
a
at
corner,
either,
it
yeah.
would be a starter.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is that Washington has a humongously expensive corner on the roster
They do.
that they're kind of stuck with for another year at least in Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, they're not literally stuck with him because he doesn't have a dead cap. My point is they traded for him. They're not just going to like throw him in the trash can immediately because that's, pride and, a little bit of pride there. And
Absolutely.
so I don't know if they want to spend another huge sum of money if another position group's available.
Fair enough.
That's a need position group because I maintain, and I think all of us are on the same page. Some people love to chant BPA all day,
Right.
over and over and over and over again. Some of the morons in our comment section do it. But I think the way most teams do it, they have their draft board and a factor in it in the draft board is team need. It's not the only factor, it's a factor. So if the next Lawrence Taylor pops up, you're going to grab him anyway because he's ranked high enough because of his pure ability. But the team needs are in there. As an example, Washington ain't drafting a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
What if a quarterback is available at 29? You want him to draft him? Are you that married to BPA that you would do it anyway? No, of course you're not.
Of course not. Of course
Right.
not.
Yeah,
Well,
that
I
makes no
mean,
sense.
if you look at last year's draft, it's a perfect example on you know that they have pride. They do need and the best player available at those needs, and they rank them like that, and they'll draft to that. In that sense, I think most teams do that. But when you get a guy like a Johnny Newton, who is a projected top 15 pick, slides out of the first round, his medicals look like they're going to clear. You give him an early second round, you blow up the rest of your draft board, and that's when you take the best player available. You didn't need him, but he was ranked among almost entirely the top 15 pick. That's when BPA typically 9 times out of 10 comes into play when it's solely just that.
And the other way of saying exactly what you're saying is if a player's ranked so high and he slips that you kind of just can't pass him up, then sure, take him. And that's what you're saying.
Right.
And so, yeah, in that respect, if, one of these corners, pops up there and sure, but otherwise I think they're going to go another direction.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also, even though I agree with you about, need being an important factor, it just becomes harder to say it when you're at 29 than it is at like top 10.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So speaking of needs and moving players around to fit some needs, the team has officially announced, Dan Quinn announced this, that Brandon Coleman, the first thing they're going to do is try him at right tackle. Since obviously they don't need him to play left tackle now. They're going to swap him onto the other side. There was some thought that he might play a guard spot, because obviously they could use an upgrade at guard. And, Allegretti was fine, but if you could move him inside and he's a, good starting left guard for you, that'd be great too. But it makes sense, I think, to put him at right tackle, give you those bookend tackles for a while. It makes a lot of sense, especially with Jaden Daniels' ability to run and move outside the pocket. You want good
Right.
tackle play.
This
for
is
that.
exactly what we've been saying for months.
Yeah.
Dave, you wrote a couple columns about this, as a matter of fact, if I
Yep.
recall.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We told you guys from the beginning that Brandon Coleman probably was not going to walk in here and become a plus level left tackle.
Right.
And
He could
lo
be
and
a plus
behold,
level
guess
right
what?
tackle still.
Sure, and we never said he wouldn't be.
Right.
But they were always probably going to bring in or draft an elite left tackle, and they did that. And so, yeah, I mean, because if you think about it, who sucks worse? Is it Andrew Wiley or Nick Allegretti?
Sure.
It's Wiley, right?
Yeah.
And so I think he's the one who would need to be replaced first. And so you slide Coleman over and you maybe try Wiley inside, and see if it works to replace Sam Cosmi. I don't know.
I think
Well,
that is going to be
Right.
the plan right now.
Well, and you also put Wiley in his much natural position, because when he was in the Chiefs, his first 4 years, he was a right guard anyway, and he did well.
Right.
I think he even had a Pro Bowl year as a guard. It's just right tackle. He just hasn't had that same effectiveness. So if anything, you move him and Sam Cosmi until Sam Cosmi's ready, and Allegretti isn't performing. Then you move him to the left side of left guard when Cosmi comes back in, and Allegretti becomes a swing guard basically for you, and then you make a decision what you want to do interior in next year's draft.
And so Wiley did play guard for Kansas City for the first 3 years of his tenure in Kansas City. I do not see where he was a Pro Bowler.
Which I wasn't sure if he did. I thought he might have.
Yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, maybe guard is his more natural position. Maybe he won't be quite so terrible. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, he was horrible at right tackle. Wow.
Or maybe they draft another interior lineman they really like, hopefully.
They ought to do that anyway.
Yeah, keep building. Just keep building. When in doubt, draft a fat guy. I've always said.
When in doubt, bring in a fat guy.
Right? They solve every problem for you in football in the end.
Alex is very attracted to fat men.
Fat men and punters, all the way. If I write a book, we could call it that. Fat dudes and punters.
There you go. Yeah. By Alex East from the Hawks side.
Well, at least Washington is lucky because this draft, I'm not going to say they're loaded in top end interior alignment, but what it is loaded in is a lot of undersized tackles for the NFL that could become very good guards with a couple years of grooming. So at least they can get someone in the mid to late rounds to have deep on that roster. They can groom to come into the interior side in a couple years. So
this draft, people have been down on the draft overall. I think if you know what you're looking for, there's plenty of value in this draft. You just you have to accept, it's going to be specific things like interior line. It's going to be like when I looked at tight ends, I saw a bunch of tight ends I liked. Now, Washington doesn't need a tight end, but there's a bunch there that I think could add value. You're not going to find a superstar. You'll find a good number 2 in this draft. Same with receivers, which I've started looking at. By the way, never let me pick receivers again. There's way too many of them. I'm so tired of watching.
Hey, you did it to yourself, man.
I did it to myself. I know.
My sympathy's limited.
Yeah.
There's been many years when I've done 5 or 6 of these columns. So I'm glad you all stepped up. I appreciate it.
It's a lot of receivers, though. And similar to other positions, this
is the very first year I let somebody else do quarterbacks. I usually take the quarterbacks.
Well, it helps that we have a franchise quarterback. You weren't as interested.
I wasn't as yes, but I also have a lot less time right now, and it takes a lot of time for me to do my quarterback.
If we're really breaking them down, it does take a lot.
Well, that's what I really do. I don't proclaim to be an expert, but I really do spend a legitimate, serious amount of time. I spend months doing the quarterback column.
Well, well, let's also be honest, Steve. You've had a lot more hits than misses compared to some of the so-called experts that are out there as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. And again, I don't proclaim to be an expert at it, but it takes, I think we've done this long enough that if I spend enough time on it, you can generally tell what's going to happen with the quarterback, depending on the situation.
You really do watch a ton of them.
I do. Oh yeah.
when you would do quarterbacks. You
Yes.
watch multiple games fully. I know it's
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
It's not just quickly watch 15-minute highlights and let's go. Which is what I usually do with a lot of these.
You have
But
to be a nerd with a ton of time on your hands to be able to do that.
right. Also, analyzing quarterbacks is fun though. Like, let's be honest, it's one of the most fun positions to
Well,
look
I
at.
mean, like I know I can't do linemen, right? I'm
Right.
not going to be able to look at it. I'm not Robbie Duncan. I have to call. I have called Robbie about linemen before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I feel like I've gotten okay thanks to all the times we talked to Robbie. Like he told us, here's some things to look for, and I like paid attention. But I would never claim to be as good as him.
No. Oh no.
Yeah. I I got a better idea, but not a great idea. But yeah, receivers, there's a lot of good receivers here too. It's just they're not going to be superstars. They're going to be guys who can do 2 or 3 good things for a lot of teams. So
there's our preview of next week. What Alex doesn't want to do is blow it by saying too much.
No,
For ruining the segment next
not
week.
yet. Not yet. Other than the fact that I actually did break down Travis Hunter too, which is funny.
Which is it is kind of funny.
Yeah. He's the number 1 on multiple positions.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to deal with Dion anymore. That's also nice, I'm sure, for him.
That's always good.
Right? All right. We made it to an hour, guys. We always worry about it during this part of the year if we'll make it to an hour. We made it to another hour.
Somehow,
So-
some way.
Somehow, some way. All right, guys. We will talk to you next week, and we will be talking about wide receivers. I got some homework to do.
Thanks to everybody
next
for
week.
listening. For those of you
Sure.
guys who've listened to this and have been listening for a long time, we do appreciate it.
We do.
Oh,
We do.
absolutely.
It's also fun. It's partially football therapy for us. So
Yeah.
it is. All right. Hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Later.